Well, welcome once again to ARTBreak, everyone. Today we have another program that ties into exhibit of Japanese art, Sugoi, that's currently on display in the upstairs galleries. And to begin with, as you'll see, this is really a special, I think, the artwork here, I think, is really unique and special and has lots of implications that we'll be able to discuss a little later. Well, 3 days after the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, Iri Maruki traveled from Tokyo to Hiroshima to check on relatives. He was followed by his wife Toshi a few days later, and together they spent a month in the devastated city, helping the wounded and looking after the other survivors. Both of the Marukis were artists, and 3 years later they began a collaborative effort of creating a series of large paintings that were not simply based on their experience of being in Hiroshima, but also incorporated the stories and the recollections of survivors. So this project really became kind of a group memory. And it resulted into a 30-year project in which they created 15 of these panels. And the importance of the panels at this time was in Japan, which they traveled throughout Japan, starting in 1950, was that no other images of Hiroshima were permitted by the US occupational forces. So these were really the first and only images at that time. They later went on to travel throughout the world. We're very fortunate to have with us today Dr. Takashi Yoshida, who is a professor of history at WMU and also the director of the Soga Japan Center. Dr. Yoshida his area of focus is World War II and its aftermath in the Pacific, and he's received numerous awards and fellowships for his research and writing on this topic. He has also several books out, including From Cultures of War to Cultures of Peace, War and Peace Museums in Japan, China, and South Korea, and also The Making of the Rape of Nanking, History and Memory in Japan, China, and the United States. So once again, we're very pleased to have Dr. Yoshida with us to discuss this really fascinating series of works and the context in which it developed and its relationship to the peace movement in Japan as well. So please welcome Dr. Takashi Yoshida.
Thank you, Greg, for your kind introduction, and thank you everyone for your time coming here today for my talk. When I received the invitation from Kia, I first thought to reject this opportunity because I'm not an art specialist. And when I thought about what I could do or what I could contribute to the audience, who I'm sure are more familiar with arts and Japanese art than I am, I thought I came up with this only one topic, which is the Marukis, the artist, husband and wife, who have been painting the aftermath of the atomic bomb and how they traveled from, or their journey from Hiroshima to focus on more wider topic. And today, I'd like to talk about or introduce the work of Marukis to you, which is a topic that I'm only familiar with. And this is how I kind of, dodge from the art specialist like you are. So let me first show you the video clip, a 15 minutes video that introduces this art museum, which was established in the 1960s.
原爆の図マルキ美術館で学芸員をしている岡村幸則と申します。
The Maruki Gallery stands near the Toki River in Higashi Matsuyama City, Saitama Prefecture, Japan. The Marukis moved here to build their gallery because the view was very similar to that of the upstream area of the Ota River where Iri and Toshi's birthplace lies in Hiroshima. The gallery was established in 1967. The Marukis decided to open this gallery so that anyone can come to see the collection anytime. Iri Maruki was born in Hiroshima. He is an ink wash painter. Toshi Maruki was born in Hokkaido. She is an oil painter. The Hiroshima panels are collaborative works of the artist couple, but they are also the clashes of strengths of two painters from different backgrounds. On August 6, 1945, an atomic bomb with a massive destructive power, known as a new type of bomb at the time, was dropped on Hiroshima. It's estimated that over 100,000 people died in Hiroshima on that year from a single bomb. Iri and Toshi Maruki had evacuated from Tokyo and were living in Saitama at the time. They heard the news to Hiroshima several days later. It is believed that Iri entered Hiroshima 3 days after the bombing and Toshi about 2 weeks after that. Maruki spent about a month until the end of September in Hiroshima. They devoted all their time rebuilding destroyed homes, helping transport supplies and food. During that time, the Marukis hardly depicted the atomic bombing. A few sketches of the burnt out city, but there is none depicting Hiroshima, the survivors of the bombing. They returned to Tokyo and the war was over. The Marukis thought a new, peaceful, brighter time had come, and they tried to paint upbeat images. However, they just could not forget the scars of war. The Marukis thought everyone pretends not to see it, but in reality, the war is still going on. As painters, they felt compelled to depict memories that are forgotten and cannot be recounted. They decided to paint the atomic bomb. The Hiroshima panels exhibited in the Maruki Gallery are quite large. People are painted life-sized on 1.8 meter high and 7.2 meter wide folding screens. They're so realistic that viewers may have the illusion that they are standing in the burnt ruins of Hiroshima. Hiroshima panels consist of a series of 15 paintings. The Maruki Gallery houses and exhibits the first to the 14th. In 1950, the year the Marukis first painted the atomic bomb, they exhibited the first 3 panels. The first work is called Ghosts. This work depicts the scene where people burned by the atomic bomb in an instant. They were walking with their hands halfway out before dragging their hands. It looked like a procession of ghosts. Actually, neither Iri nor Toshi was in Hiroshima on August 6. So they incorporated memories and accounts of other people, including Iri's family, as well as their own experiences into the paintings. Hiroshima panels are filled with various testimonies, imaginations, memories, and emotions of many people. Marukis reconstructed, expressed the memories of countless Hibakusha, not just their own personal experiences, in their art. The work Fire depicts people trying to flee in a burst of flame. The Marukis did not see the scene. If they had, they would not have survived to paint this work. This work depicts a scene of a hypocenter where all lives were lost, no one survived. That is, no one can pass on the memories. The scene was depicted with artistic imagination. The third world, Water, depicts people who fled the flames and reached the river searching for water. There is an image of a mother and her child in the middle of the panel. Historically, mother and child image is often depicted as a symbol of happiness. It is reversed in the Hiroshima panels. It is a symbol of sorrow. As soon as the first 3 Hiroshima panels were completed, they began their journey across Japan while exhibition toured. It was a time when the report of the damage caused by the atomic bombing was strictly forbidden under the Allied occupation led by the US military. It was not possible to see any photos of Hibakusha either. Through the exhibitions, so many people saw the paintings and learned about the damage caused by the atomic bombings. The Hiroshima panels played a role in conveying the memory of the atomic bombings for the first time. Eventually, the exhibition traveled to over 20 countries around the world. Hiroshima panels touched the hearts of people all over the world and showed them the devastation caused by nuclear weapons. During the course of the exhibition, the Marukis met many different people. This is what I experienced. Please take these too. They received such comments from many people, including Hibakusha, who continued to paint the scores of the Hiroshima panels. The fourth work, Rainbow, depicts a rainbow that appeared after a radioactive black rain fell from the sky. The fifth work, Boys and Girls, depicts young school-aged boys and girls who have been mobilized to work in factories. So many young people suffered and lost their lives from the atomic bombing. Marukis continued to paint Hiroshima panels, and in the eighth work, Believe, the Marukis also depicted people who came to help the survivors after the bombing. Here, we can find Iri and Toshi Maruki themselves in the painting. The ninth work, Yaizu, was painted after an incident occurred in the Pacific Ocean, in which a Japanese fishing boat, the title Freeman, was exposed to radiation from an American hydrogen bomb testing, and one of the fishermen died after it. The Marukis realized that the issue of atomic bombing was not just about Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, but it continued to exist. They decided to depict angry fishermen and locals in a port town called Yaizu as part of the petition raised a nationwide petition campaign against atomic bomb and hydrogen bomb. This portrayal will relate to the creation of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons on the Road. The crowd's work, Floating Lanterns, depicts the ceremony held on August 6th every year to commemorate the lives lost in the atomic bombing. The Gallery also holds a floating lantern ceremony every year at the Tokyo. The themes of the Hiroshima panels changed considerably in the 1970s. As the Marukis traveled around the world on exhibition tours, they realized that painting only the silent victims would not be enough to address the true nature of the war. In 1970, the first exhibition of the Hiroshima panels was held in the United States. Then they were confronted with the idea of Japan as a perpetrator during the war. Initially, Marukis started painting the Hiroshima panels to show the world the damage that the Japanese had suffered. But through their experiences in the United States, they started to think about the complicity of the war. No matter what kind of war it is, you were not just a victim, you hurt each other. At first glance, the atomic bombings may seem to be a symbol of the damage done to the Japanese people. But within this event, there is another side of Japan as a perpetrator. The Marukis realized that Japanese people assaulted American prisoners of war after the atomic bombing, and that Japanese soldiers committed various acts of violence in Asian countries. In the 13th work, the Marukis depicted a scene where the American prisoners of war were tied and assaulted by the people of the street after the atomic bombing. The 14th work, Crowds, depicted the people who were forcibly brought to Japan from the Korean Peninsula and forced to work and lost their lives because of the atomic bombing. Marukis spent over 30 years working on the Hiroshima panels until they completed the 15th work of Nagasaki in 1982. They also painted many huge murals other than the Hiroshima panels. A lot of them depicted sexual violence during the wartime. Yamata depicts environmental pollution as a symbol of violence during the time without war. Violence takes different forms: pollution, nuclear disasters, diseases, poverty, discrimination, prejudice, etc. We are all sensitive to our own pain. It's very difficult to feel the pain of others and relate to the suffering of people in other countries. The Marukis believed we need to have the imagination to feel the pain and suffering of others as if it were our own. Without drawing lines between your life and others, as every life has the same importance. The Marukis wanted to convey this message through their art. Along with the Hiroshima panels, the Maruki Gallery has always featured works of Iri Maruki's mother, Suma Maruki, who started painting when she was already over 70 years old. Suma's paintings are very bright and vibrant. They're so full of the joy of life. Works may play a role in relieving our hearts and have become a little heavy after seeing Hiroshima panels. But they're not just cheerful paintings. Suma experienced the atomic bombing. She also left behind these simple words. If people did not drop the bomb, it would not fall. At a glance, Suma's paintings in the Hiroshima panels seem to represent complete opposites. They are actually deeply connected at their roots.
この美術館では様々な角度から命について考える作品が展示されています。そして美術館の外に出ると、子供の鳴き声が聞こえて、明るい日差しの中で様々な命が溢れている様子も見ることができます。マルキウスが残した美術館、原爆の図のために作られた美術館で、今生きている私たちが何を大切に したらいいのか。この世界はどのようによりよく次の世代まで続いていくことができるのか。何か新しい国が生まれてくるととても嬉しく思います。
So any comments, reflections about the film? Did you like? Yeah, yes.
Did they work out everything together? It looked like they were painting together.
Yeah, they collaborated well. So they worked together. So as you may realize that the husband, the husband artist, he focuses on the Japanese traditional calligraphy painting. And Toshi's work, she specializes more like the Western art. So it's a mixture of traditional Japanese art and Western art, expressed in one collaborative work. Yeah, so their specialty is different, but they collaborate together, they work together. Other comments, questions? No. The reason why they began to work their own work, or Hiroshima panels, from the 1950s. And in the 1950s, Japan was defeated in 1945, and there was occupation from 1945 to 1952. And this, oh, I'm sorry. Japan was defeated already. Japan lost the war in 1945, and from 1945 to 1952, Japan was under the occupation. It was an Allied occupation, but mainly led by the United States. So during this occupational period in Japan, it was strictly prohibited to criticize the Allied occupation. So even though under the occupation, Japanese government and Japanese press was supposed to adhere freedom of speech, freedom of press, but there was a censorship, and it was strictly prohibited to release or to criticize any policies done by the SCAP, or Supreme Commands for the Allied Powers, or the United States military. So during the occupation, the Marukis art kind of played a significant role, like a media, to educate people what happened in Hiroshima. And so it functioned as the like a present day television program or news media at that time. But in the United States, the story is a little bit different, and I would like to emphasize that the New York Times reported the events in Hiroshima and reported aftermath of Hiroshima, and the New Yorker actually became the best seller in 1946, 1947, and the book titled Hiroshima, which was published in the 1940s, that also became bestseller here in the United States. So perhaps many more Americans were able to understand what happened in Hiroshima, other than those people in Japan in the 1940s. So that was the kind of a brief background in the from 1945-1950 to during the occupation period. And the reason why the Maruki's paintings traveled across the world, or around the world, in the 1950s and 60s is one of the reasons is that the threat of the nuclear war was very, very real. So many countries would like to host countries, including a socialist bloc, they invited those panels to their countries. So if you think about the Japanese relations, international relations between China and Japan, the Japanese government didn't or hadn't established diplomatic relations until 1970s. But even before the diplomatic relations was re-established in the 1950s and 60s, the Marukis art traveled in China as well. And it went to Soviet Union as well. And it finally, or their paintings finally came to the United States in the 1970s. And the reason why their art traveled to the United States in the 1970s is mostly by the support of the peace activists here in the United States. Those American peace activists are mostly anti-Vietnam War peace activists, and they supported Marukis art, and they bringing those huge panels is very, very hard. It's like huge. I mean, perhaps so 6 feet tall, and the entire panel is like 10 feet long or something like that. So like their work, like Rape of Nanking, that was larger than this entire white screen. And Auschwitz, which they painted in 1975, that's also larger than that white screen. So it's gigantic, and it's very, very powerful. Those American peace activists, they invited the Marukis and their paintings to the United States. And they traveled across the United States. And it was their very, very good opportunity for them to meet the Americans. Of course, they knew those peace activists, which included people like the Pulitzer Prize winner, historian John Dower, and also the peace activist filmmaker Jan Junkermann and others. But it provided them to meet Americans in the United States. And when they gave a talk, they encountered some of the like tough questions, like what do you think about the violence against other Asians? What happened? Some of them asked, like, what they think about American prisoners of war who are brutally killed, or like a Baton Death March and other things. So those kind of questions like opened their eyes, or they had to think about what they hadn't thought about. Or the atrocities committed by the Japanese military, that was one. And also the bomb. You don't have to be specialist. Bomb destroys everything, which was dropped. So the Hiroshima included not only Japanese citizens, but also Korean and Chinese slave laborers. And also there was a POW camp. So some American soldiers were killed by the bomb. And also it destroyed the animals and the plants and the environmental pollution and so on. But in the 1950s and 60s, their work primarily focused on the victims in Hiroshima. But from the 1970s on, after they traveled to the United States, after they met the activists here in the United States, and the questions that they received, they began to paint the Rape of Nanking, that was in 1970, Auschwitz 1975, and Minamata, which was the focusing on the aftermath of the pollution caused by the mercury poisoning in the southern part of Japan. So they broadened their work, and the last work of the Hiroshima panel was Nagasaki. And the reason, part of the reason why that Nagasaki was the last one is that when people talk about a bomb or atomic bomb, Hiroshima comes first, perhaps. But not many. In many cases, Nagasaki is almost, often forgotten. But Nagasaki had the largest Catholic population during the war in Asia, not only in Japan but in Asia. And the bomb, destroyed the city, and many Catholics were killed by the bomb. And if you are Catholic, you know that the Catholics cannot commit suicide. So some of the survivors of the atom bomb in Nagasaki, they struggled so hard, and even though they wanted to kill themselves sometimes, their faith couldn't, allow them to do so. So Nagasaki was the last one, and I would like to emphasize that the importance of their work is not only the work, but also their museum became one of the centers of the education. So lots of elementary schools, junior high schools, they arranged the school field trip to the museum. So the film clip showed those small kids who visited the museum, and they kind of learned what happened in Hiroshima, and also they have to think about what led to those kind of destruction. And the two painters, or those couple of the artists, they are one of the examples. I mean, of the Japan's post-war peace movement. You can find similar museums in other parts, like Okinawa has the art museum called the Sakima Museum of Art, and it's kind of their funding policies similar to the Maruki Art Museum. Perhaps I talked too much. Do you have any other comments and questions? Oh, yeah, yes?
I was wondering, is there any place outside of Japan that a person can see any of these murals or, today? In other words, are they all located in Japan at this Japan Art Museum, or is it are there museums in the U.S. or Europe that also have?
No, there aren't any museums that exhibit their work like permanently, but sometimes they travel. In the 1970s case was the one of the example. So if some institutes have enough funding, those partners can travel abroad. In this case, it's very hard to find those fundings. Oh, by the way, I brought a museum brochure, so I can probably circulate this, and you can take a look. And let's see. Each art comes with those kind of scripts, or the script, or let's say, like a brief explanations. So, like the ghosts that you saw in the film, the script says it was a procession of ghosts, clothes bound in an instant, hands, faces, breasts swelled, Powerful blisters soon burst on skin, hung like rags. A procession of goats, with their hands held before them, dragging their torn skin, they fell exhausted, piling onto one another, groaning and dying. So if you read those kind of script, and the image will become more realistic, I think. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you're saying that there couldn't be anything written during the period up till 1952?
You can write, but you cannot publish it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Did they have but in the meantime, they're painting.
They are painting, and also so for example, if they would like to publish throughout the national newspaper or so, there was a censorship to prohibit them, and there was the radio program, but radio program cannot include like a critical comments of the Allied powers. But I have to emphasize that the U.S. occupation was very much welcomed, and many people, supported the U.S. Occupation. So General Douglas MacArthur received tons of fan letters every day from the Japanese ordinary people. They were very much grateful for his leadership and for bringing peace in Japan. But the censorship was very, very critical, and the national newspapers had to carry the history of the Pacific, which was written by American authors but translated into Japanese. And the first couple of years of the occupation, every national newspaper had to carry this history of the Pacific War in Japan. Yeah.
I was wondering, did they suffer themselves any repercussions during the time they were painting? Do you know?
Their stay was like a couple of months long. So even though they, and also it depends on the certain people. So some affected by the atomic poisoning, even if they just momentarily stayed in Hiroshima. But it seems that their suffering was not so severe. So the husband died in 1995, and the wife died in 2000. So their whatever the damage they had, that didn't affect them immediately. Although I'm not very sure why they do not have children. Is it their decision, or is that because of some sort of after effects of the bomb? That I don't know. Yes, and you have a question as well, right?
Marukis have passed away.
Yeah, they passed away.
1995,
1995, the husband painter, and the wife painter 2000. Yeah, so 20 years ago. Yeah, any other question or comments? Yes?
Where in the United States were they exhibited, and what was the reaction?
In the 1970s, right? In the 1970s. They went to New York, and I know they went to New York. And they traveled from the east to west. So from California to New York. And in between, I'm not sure which cities they visit. But, sometimes they receive the questions like, like Japan was the aggressor. Or the bomb saved not only the American lives, but Japanese lives, or some other lives as well, you know.
But the entire exhibits would have been funded by peace activists.
Peace activists.
They were accompanied by people whose goal was to show these in light of the destruction of everyone.
Yeah, and in the 1970s.
Yeah.
So you know the pacifist movement or the anti-Vietnam War movement was very, very active. And they were so very much committed, and you know the effort and energy made those kind of travel possible. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Why that area? Why bomb that area?
Why the Hiroshima was chosen?
No, but why did they choose that area to bomb?
Yeah, all right. So why the United States decided to bomb Hiroshima instead of Tokyo, and killing the supreme commander would not help the occupy the defeated country. I mean, I'm kind of making a joke, but I'm sorry. But yeah, the Tokyo is where the emperor lived, or lived, and if the leader was killed, or the palace didn't receive any bombings. So many people here in the United States do not know most of the Japanese cities were bombed during the wartime. So most major cities experienced the conventional bombings, and the total amount of the people killed by those conventional bombings were much greater than the victims caused by the atomic bomb. But the palace didn't receive any bombings. So it was calculated, and and the U.S. bombers never bombed the palace. Why? Because if the emperor was killed, it would not help the occupation after Japan was defeated. And from the 1942, U.S. government had or began to think about occupation after Japan was defeated. So United States had more than 3 years to think about what it is going to do over Japan. So going back to your question, Hiroshima was the one of the military cities. So it had the military port and military factories, and because of the weather, especially at the time in August or around in summer, if there were lots of clouds, it would be very hard to drop the bomb, and also the research what happened after the bomb was dropped. So not only the U.S. bombers, but those research planes also followed, and Hiroshima was chosen because of its location, and it was a strategic location, and it had military cities, so that's a part of the reasons why Hiroshima was chosen. And so there were a couple of reasons which at this moment I can't remember very well. But there was another possibility to drop the different city if the weather was different on August 9th. Yeah, but Tokyo never become options for the United States to drop the atomic bomb. Yeah. So any other questions, comments? Were you encouraged by the stories of stories of Marukis? I mean, the hard thing is, we can all feel the pain of others, but it's sometimes very hard to extend or to understand the pain of others. And when we talk about the nation, a war, this is especially so. So, when we talk about the war against, Iran or against some other nations, usually subject begins like, we, they. So they are the bad guys, we are good ones. And we, or especially those who live here in the United States, like we, including myself, often overlook what happened on the ground. And one of the significances or important things about Marukis is that their focus was what happened on the ground and what happened to the people, rather than focusing on national the government policies and so on. So I hope that this work, or Maruki's work, or their paintings and politics encouraged us, who thinks that the thinking about the pains of others is important. So thank you so much for all of you for your time on Tuesday afternoon. So if you are interested in, taking a look at the museum brochure, feel free to do so. Yeah.
Have you seen the movie Oppenheimer yet?
Not yet. Did you?
No.